Okay.
Fire away.
In the two passages, many similarities and differences can be drawn. In passage A, a teacher and student are discussing a student's work, as well as a less than satisfactory attitude towards the course their teacher is taking. Whereas in passage B, focus on the two characters, Stevens and Miss Kenton, who are discussing each other's work, each of the mindset of criticising the other.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there. That's quite a long introduction, which is all right if you're going to talk about similarities in the purpose of the speakers.
Okay.
Yeah, which you haven't done.
Okay.
So can anyone tell me the similarities in the purpose of our speakers?
They're both really angry and they're trying to repress rage.
Good.
And remain professional.
Right, well that's two comparisons there in the introduction. That's immediately going to get you much better marks. Okay then, Miles, next bit.
In passage A, the teacher comments on how a student didn't think to ask me for any help, with bracket 3.0, close bracket, and then another pause. The teacher's speech is riddled with various hesitations, each of varying length. These help to give the teacher the power in the conversation, making them the more dominant speaker, as they're the ones setting the speed of the conversation, and by following up with they are prompting the student to respond.
Stop there. What do we think about that paragraph?
Said dominant.
Yes, brilliant, which is where in the mark scheme?
Band 5.
Band 5, excellent, although he hasn't spelt it correctly.
Okay.
Yeah,
I can't spell.
Take the E off dominant and you're fine. Okay. Carry on.
In contrast, there is no clear dominant speaker in passage B, as both Stevens and Miss Kenton are struggling to take the power of the conversation. Despite the fact they are arguing, both return to a very formal register and sophisticated lexical choice. As seen in the line, there is no need to become so bad-tempered. I merely felt the need to satisfy myself and that had not escaped your attention. As seen, Miss Kenton and Stevens' speech appears precise and refined, giving it the feeling of rehearsed speech. This is most likely due to the event of memory being a memory of Stevens, who is functioning as a biased narrator, and editing out any elisions, false starts, or hesitations they may have had.
Brilliant. Does it get into band 5?
Ow! Teachers aren't allowed to be violent.
Does it get into band 5? No, I'm not editing it out, I'm keeping it in. Thanks for putting your phone away. Now, does it get into band 5?
Oh, and depth, like what Ishiguro wants to do, like the narrative framework.
Ah, okay, so we need to go with the narrative framework next.
So what Stevens wants to do, and then go deeper, so what Ishiguro also wants to do.
Good, I'd accept that. He's used loads of the terminology, hasn't he, with register and false starts and elisions and what have you, so he's getting those marks. So I'd say it's getting partly into the band 5, but not fully yet.
Okay.
You talk about how it's rehearsed speech, but not, and you say it's biased, but you don't say why the bias is there or what it's biased about.
I was going to then, I decided as we didn't have much time left just to get to the next point.
Is a good answer. Well done. Okay, Emily, thanks for the eye candy. Please read to us.
Okay, the two passages are very similar in that they both include anger, and on a deeper level, restrained anger due to attempting to maintain professionalism. Just as Mrs. Kenton was trying to repress her rage at Stevens, it would be very unprofessional and unladylike, more important in the 1920s, the teacher must restrain herself with the student.
Stop there. What do you think of that as an introduction, Miles?
It's good. She's got context of historical times.
Yes.
She's got the purpose of the speakers, and it's like gives reference to each passage.
Excellent. And it's the purpose that's the main thing that makes it good, the purpose of the speakers. Next bit.
Both texts are in fact only text, and so there is no visual aid to help set the tone. Stevens, within the narrative framework of Ishiguro, uses visual imagery to help the reader understand the tone of stress in Miss Kenton, as it's difficult to fully convey her emotion through her speech. A bar of light fell across her face, so I could see the angry expression on it demonstrates this very well. As Stevens felt it necessary in order to convey the emotion, Ishiguro used the syntactical arrangement to convey Stevens' emotions at the time to the reader. By having the positive lexis first, a bar of light, gives a quite romantic tone, being closely juxtaposed to, so I could see the angry expression on her face, strikes fear in the audience due to the violent contrast to positive and negative lexis. This brings the reader into the novel more, enticing them. Likewise, passage A does not have any visual aid, but this time, despite there being dominant speakers, there is no narrative framework or even a narrator at all. Pauses such as this piece of work, pause, if you can call it work, pause, demonstrate where there may be other features of speech which cannot be depicted in the transcript as it's only text. Where these pauses lie could be filled with features such as paralinguistics that the speaker may be using to convey tone and push a certain emotion onto the person. Through, for instance, crossing one's arms, the teacher could hold herself back from letting too much anger out, which would not be professional. Another reason for the pauses may be that the teacher is simply waiting for the student to respond, or vice versa. Due to the tone of the text, the paralinguistic features can be guessed from this transcript alone.
Excellent, thank you very much for reading it so well. So has Emily dealt with the purpose of the author?
Yeah, she said about how Ishiguro uses syntactical arrangement to show what Stevens is like.
Did she?
Yeah, she said it somewhere.
I thought she was just saying how it was just to entice the reader to read on. Am I wrong, Emily?
No, you're right.
She said about having the positive words at the start.
Yes, but it was linked to a kind of weak purpose, because all books are written with the idea that they want you to read on, yeah? And so you want to think, well, what is it? What's the message of this book? What's the message that we'll always be able to bring it back to with Remains of the Day?
The class system.
Yeah, we'll always be able to come back to the class system. Ollie, what were you listening for?
I was listening for the comparisons between the two passages. The paragraphs began with in both passages, which gave a good, he was able to back reference and write about repressed anger, and that gave her a lot of marks for AO2, Man 5. So
good. I thought the big paragraphs didn't compare, so you did brilliantly at the beginning with your
I just
with
thought
your
I'd
introduction.
compare, go into depth, compare, go into depth.
I agree, but what I'd do is, when you've gone into depth, that depth then needs to be linked to a comparison.
Okay, so compare the depth. So could here, with my point, even though it's quite a weak point, say about enticing the reader.
Yeah, I mean...
What form is this actually? The discussion?
Yeah.
So it's not actually...
And the exam's always going to be normal speech. Right, because it's spoken language is always going to be in the question, your non-remains of the day extract will always be natural speech. Yeah? So it will always be that. You always know you're comparing it to natural speech. Right, Ollie, take it away.
both passages use spoken language in order to indicate the dominant speaker. The teacher, in passage A, asks her student multiple questions, mainly through the use of interrogative sentences. In response, the student's long pauses, coupled with fillers, such as also suggest he is under pressure.
Okay, I'll pause it there. Anyone got something from band 5 from the thing they're listening for?
Did he say dominance?
He did. Good, so that's one, isn't it? Yeah. Molly, you're listening for the technical vocabulary. Is he using it?
Yes.
He is already. Why is that a good tactic to do it even in your introduction?
Because it shows the examiner that you are high educated, and then they're like, oh, this person's good even if you go down on your essay.
Correct. Right, Ollie, next paragraph.
The pauses in passage A also make the sentences appear much shorter. The teacher ponders why the student didn't think to ask for any help. The length of the sentences make the teacher appear angry and impatient. Similarly, in passage B, Miss Kenton also deploys short, snappy sentences to indicate her impatience for Mr. Stevens, telling him that the matter is perfectly under control.
Oh, right, brilliant. Who's doing the comparisons?
Me.
Oh, go on then.
He said that, like, both passages, and then when he made a point in one passage, he was like, however you say it, and went on to the other.
Yes. Emily, do you think that's a tactic that will work for you, making these comparisons pretty quickly?
I think so, yeah, because I think if I make them quickly as well, then it will help me keep it through the entire essay.
Yeah, I agree. So well done, Ollie. I won't castigate you for writing so little because the quality's good. Right, who was listening to the historical stuff? Has he got any?
Not really, no.
So your advice would be?
To see if we can reference anything at the time, like, say, positions in the household.
Good.
Stevens and Miss Kenton. Like, Stevens is head butler and she is like head of the house and the lower staff. Like, see like how they act on one another and how it knits into how they talk.
Brilliant. Okay.
Go, Harry.
There are features in passage A that are common characteristics of spoken language, In passage A, there are examples of paralinguistic features that would be used in pauses. For example, the teacher says, "Any help with it?" 3-second pause, then and then a 1.5 second pause. These pauses are examples of where facial expressions could be used by the teacher, as she wants the student to think about what he's done wrong and to make him feel guilty. The teacher is also trying to dominate the conversation. She does this by using lexis like auspicious and divert, which are both very strong words to use. This technique is used very often in spoken language and gains dominance in the conversation.
Excellent. There is a slight problem though. Harry, you've leapt from one really detailed paragraph about the passage to another detailed paragraph that links to it. It's much easier if you make a comparison here at the end of that paragraph and then do this one and make another comparison.
Yeah. So I've done the comparison.
Yeah, because that was the skill that Ollie was showing us. Right, next paragraph.
In the Remains of the Day passage, this use
Stop. You're in an exam. What are you going to call it? Not Remains of the Day passage, you just call it passage
B.
B, good.
This use of lexis to gain dominance is also visible. For example, Miss Kenton says things like perpetually, which intimidates Stevens and shows that she is in control.
Okay, I'm going to stop you. Instead of saying things like perpetually, what are we going to call that? Using the terminology.
Lexis.
Yes, what sort of lexis? No.
Is it formal, like?
Yeah,
Lexis?
a formal register. Yeah, so the lexis
Complex.
comes from a formal register. You could call it complex. Yeah. So you're going to keep using those terms. Brilliant. Finish it off then, Harry.
Compared to passage A, where there are pauses to show where paralinguistic features take place, there is the narrator who says things like, "She stamped past me." This is an example of how the author shows the reader who is in control and who has the power.
Brilliant. You know you were talking about paralinguistics there. Where did you talk about paralinguistics first?
In the first...
Yeah, put your finger on it. Good. And so that's where you would put the comparison in, yeah?
Okay.
Rather than waiting till later.
Alright.
Well done. Yeah. So mean to each other.
Oh, that is rich.
Have I been too mean to you today,
Yeah,
Molly?
you have.
Okay. Very sorry.
Hold on.
So this video is brought to you by the wonderful students from my Year 12 class.
You're Smiley Miley.
Smiley Miley. That's going to go in the credits. I can't see it.
Yeah,
there
no,
we
but
go.
I was going to turn it around. You've got to press...
Beautiful. It is recording. I recorded all of that. Thank you very much.